enriched uranium, a ballistic missile program, and a threat of nuclear proliferation. These were the considerations of Israel on the eve of June 13th, 2025, when it launched its largest military operation against Iran's nuclear program.
موشک همین الان اسرائیل حمله کرد به صورت زنده موشک زدن و احتمالاً کشته داده اینجا مردم داشتن.
Israel called it Operation Rising Lion. The strike was not just focused on nuclear and military targets. Israel decapitated the entire top military command structure of Iran.
I'll tell you what would have come if we hadn't acted. We had information that this unscrupulous regime was planning to give the nuclear weapons that they would develop to their terrorist proxies. That's nuclear terrorism on steroids. That would threaten the entire world.
Israel also targeted nuclear scientists of Iran.
You've eliminated nuclear scientists who are working on the enrichment program.
They were part of this criminal scheme.
But you targeted you acknowledge you targeted the nuclear scientists as well.
Yes.
Why are you targeting the scientists? Why
they were part of the criminal element that is destined to destroy Israel.
Iran calls it an act of war.
This was not self-defense. It was a premeditated, unjustifiable act of aggression. The targets include peaceful nuclear facilities under the IAEA safeguards, military installations, civilian infrastructure, and residential areas.
So far, Israel has targeted several radar sites, ballistic missile sites, and Iran's top nuclear facilities in its bid to prevent Iran from procuring nuclear weapons.
We attacked not only the nuclear facilities, we attacked their missile capability, because if the nuclear track is the first track to annihilate Israel, the ballistic missile is the second track. And we hit some of it in October. We hit more now because they were planning to build 10,000 ballistic missiles in 3 years and 20,000 in 6 years.
Iran has refused to let go of Israel's escalation. In the last 3 nights, we have seen the biggest barrage of ballistic missiles launched by Iran in retaliation.
Let me be clear, Iran will exercise its inherent right to self-defense under Article 51 of the Charter. Our response will be lawful, proportionate, and determined, and it will come at a time of our choosing. The Security Council must act now and stop the aggressor from the further aggression.
Night sky of Israel was overwhelmed with ballistic missiles, something that its air defense couldn't handle this time.
Here behind me you can see the destruction just of one Iranian missile. It is in the city of Bat Yam next to Tel Aviv, and you can see how much destruction occurred just from a blast of one Iranian missile. They are targeting civilian areas like here. You can see one of those high-rise buildings with many floors almost destroyed, and it can collapse any moment. And now the security forces with drones trying to understand if there are people still inside of this building.
This conflict is nowhere close to a logical conclusion.
I think there's a real danger that unless the war is quickly brought to an end, this will become a full-fledged war. It has already spread, initially Israel was targeting nuclear sites and the military installations. Then there were attacks on in civilian centers in both the countries. So it has already spread. And as the casualties mount, the tempers will also increase, and there's a chance of an all-out war breaking out.
The West is egging on Israel to continue, emphasizing how a nuclear Iran would risk the security of Europe.
Je le dis avec la plus grande clarté, le risque de cette marche vers l'arme nucléaire par l'Iran menace la région, l'Europe et plus généralement la stabilité collective.
Das Nuklearprogramm Irans ist eine Bedrohung für die ganze Region und insbesondere für Israel. Israel hat das Recht, seine Existenz und die Sicherheit seiner Bürger zu verteidigen. Und gleichzeitig kennen Sie auch unsere Haltung. Wir fordern alle Seiten dringend dazu auf, von Schritten abzusehen, die zu einer weiteren Eskalation führen und die die Sicherheit in der gesamten Region gefährden.
Meanwhile, the British Royal Air Force has sent in more jets to the Middle East, including Typhoons and air-to-air refuelers. The British Prime Minister said they were being sent for, quote, the contingency support across the region. The United States too has used this opportunity to overtly exert pressure on the Iranians while providing tactical support to Israel.
Well, I'd love to avoid the conflict. Iran's going to have to negotiate a little bit tougher, meaning they're going to have to give us some things that they're not willing to give us right now.
Since the operation started, first the US, while actively refusing to acknowledge its involvement, kept pressurizing Iran to get a new deal done. Trump even discussed it on a phone call with President Putin of Russia yesterday, when the latter called to extend birthday wishes to the US president. All Trump has said that Iran had a 60-day ultimatum, but this may be their second chance. However, both Russia and China, known to have very close ties with Iran and its nuclear program, have remained largely silent on their position on this conflict, essentially leaving Netanyahu in a no-holds-barred situation.
We paved the way to Tehran, and our pilots over the skies of Tehran will deal blows to the Ayatollah regime that they cannot even imagine. And I can tell you this, we have indications that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. They sense what's coming.
Concerns are extremely high about the impact of this conflict on India.
This conflict will have a major impact not only on India but other countries in the region and oil importing countries all over the world. This is the Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz accounts for 20% of global oil supplies. And since Iran-Israel conflict broke out, there has been 7% increase in price of oil, which has, there's something like more than $10 increase. Please remember, $1 increase in the price of oil leads to an increase of 14,000 crores in the annual import bill of India. And there will be similar impact on other oil importing countries.
The Islamic world in the Middle East is also largely silent on Israel's escalation, as a nuclear warhead in the hands of Shia-majority Iran could be an equally concerning situation for the Sunni-majority neighborhood. Many prominent Shia leaders in India are condemning Israel's action against Iran.
Israel had bombed in the civilian areas in which a lot of people live. And they gave a story that the scientists and the generals would live on those areas. Even if the generals or scientists were living in those areas, Israel had no right to enter a sovereign country and attack their knowledgeable people and their generals.
In a major escalation, with mounting civilian casualties, Iran and Israel have both struck each other's energy infrastructure, a red line both sides have avoided in the past.
Iranians are watching, and my fear is that while Netanyahu wants to prevent Iran from making a bomb, you know, in history there is something called the law of unintended consequences. You take an action wanting a result A, but you might get B.
The current war between Iran and Israel has a potential of destabilizing the entire region. Now, this has to be brought to an end. There are different dimensions. One dimension is Israeli security, and that has to be taken into account. The second dimension is that Iran, the sanctions against Iran have to be lifted.
With Israel in no mood to de-escalate and Iran pushed to the edge unlike ever before, tonight, just like the last two, is going to be very long, both in Tel Aviv and Tehran.